The Vox channel opened with a sound that should not exist. It was not static, not corruption, not the wet gargle of a plague-choked throat. It was a sob. A single broken exhalation, ragged, restrained, and unmistakably human. The Death Guard kill team froze inside the rusted cathedral hull of the derelict ship. Corrosion dripped like slow rain from the ceiling. Nurglite runes pulsed faintly across their armor, alive with decay. Bolters were raised instinctively, barrels tracking the darkness. The sob came again. "Help me," the voice whispered through the Vox net. "Please, I can't hold it back anymore." That voice did not belong to a servant of Nurgle. And yet the transponder rune burned bright. Brother Sergeant Malachor, 14th Legion. Death Guard, confirmed. Malachor had been lost 3 centuries earlier during the purge of Helican Reach. His remains were presumed dissolved, his gene seed unrecoverable. His name was carved into wrought stone alongside the honored dead. And now he was asking for help. The plague surgeon halted mid-step. His rusted mechadendrites twitched, tasting the air. "That is not possible," he growled. "Decay does not plead." The sob turned into strained breathing. "I remember. Terra, I remember the sun. I remember my name." Silence swallowed the chamber. A Death Guard remembering Terra was a blasphemy greater than any loyalist prayer. They advanced toward the signal, boots crunching through bone dust and ancient filth. The cathedral's nave opened into a cavernous chamber split open by some long-forgotten weapon. In the center, cocooned in cables and corroded life support machinery, knelt a single figure. Power armor, once pale green, now mottled with rot and rust. The icon of the Death Guard, still visible on the pauldron, cracked but intact. The helmet was removed. What remained of Malachor's face was a ruined skin sloughing, jaw distended, eyes milky and swollen. But those eyes focused on them with clarity, fear. "I didn't call to them," he said quickly, as if they might misunderstand. "I swear it. I didn't pray. I didn't beg. I just remembered." The plague champion raised his bolter. "Explain yourself before I erase you." Malachor laughed weakly, then coughed a dry, human cough. "That's just it. I don't understand. One moment I was bliss. The garden sang in my veins. Rot was comfort. Pain was purpose." His hands trembled. Then something broke. He gestured to his chest where the aquila scar from long before still faintly remained, half-eaten by corruption. "I heard screaming," he whispered. "Not outside, inside. Billions of voices, souls, being ground down, recycled, fed back into the warp like slurry." The plague surgeon hissed. "Heresy. Nurgle is generosity incarnate." Malachor shook his head violently. "No, he is hunger pretending to be kindness." The chamber grew colder. The Death Guard did not fear cold, but the warp recoiled, just slightly. "I saw myself," Malachor continued. "What I've done, what we've done. Worlds turned into farms of suffering. Children breathing spores until their lungs melted. And I felt it all, not joy, not purpose. Tears, real tears cut tracks through the filth on his face. I felt regret. That word struck harder than any bolt round. Regret was poison to chaos. The plague champion took a step back without realizing it. "You are compromised," he said. "The warp is testing us." Malachor's lips curled into something close to a smile. "Then why does it hurt when I speak the truth?" The cables binding him began to twitch. The machinery groaned, responding to no command rune. The air thickened, vibrating with pressure. "I tried to pray to Nurgle again," Malachor said. "Tried to drown the thoughts." He did not answer. The sob returned, deeper now. Something else did. The lights died. For a moment, there was nothing but darkness and the wet breathing of corrupted giants. Then the walls began to weep. Not pus, not rot. Blood, fresh, red, impossibly warm. The Vox crackled violently as a new voice bled through, not loud, not commanding, but intimate, like a thought whispered directly into the skull. "You have remembered what you were," it said. "And that makes you dangerous," Malachor screamed. His spine arched as if seized by invisible hooks. His armor split, not outward, but inward, folding like petals closing around a corpse. Symbols burned across his flesh-old symbols, older than the Long War. The plague surgeon lunged forward, chanting words of rot, but his words curdled in his mouth. The warp itself seemed to hesitate. "What is happening to him?" the champion demanded. The voice answered, "Reclamation." Malakor's body convulsed. His swollen flesh sloughed away in sheets, dissolving into ash before it hit the floor. Beneath the corruption was something impossible muscle knit clean, unblemished, bearing scars not of decay, but of blade and bolt. Astartes' flesh, pure. His eyes burned now not green, not warplit, but gold. "I don't want this," Malakor gasped. "I don't want to fight anymore." The voice softened. "You won't." The cables tore free, whipping across the chamber like severed veins. The Death Guard fired bolters roaring, playgrounds screaming through the air. None of them struck him. They curved away, dropped, turned to dust mid-flight. Light erupted from Malakor's chest, blinding and absolute. The scent of rot burned away, replaced by ozone and iron, and something painfully familiar: hope. When the light dimmed, Malakor was gone. In his place stood something else. Not a space marine. Not a demon. A silhouette of armored light, edges blurred as if reality struggled to agree on its shape. It looked at the Death Guard not with hatred, but with sorrow. "You asked for help," it said. Then it stepped forward, and the floor of the cathedral began to crack, not with decay, but with cleansing fire. The Death Guard did not retreat. They could not. Because somewhere deep within their corrupted gene seed, something old stirred. And it was listening. The floor split open beneath them, not with rot or corrosion, but with radiant fractures that glowed like molten veins. The cathedral hull screamed as if it were alive, bulkheads warping under forces that did not belong in the plague god's domain. The Death Guard kill team staggered as gravity lurched. One brother was dragged screaming into the widening fissure, his bloated armor igniting as cleansing fire crawled across it. He did not decay, he burned. That alone was terror. The luminous figure that had once been Malakor walked forward, each step echoing like a tolling bell. The air recoiled from it. Spores died mid-drift. Nurglite sigils blackened and flaked away, reduced to inert scrap. The plague champion roared, forcing his corrupted will into motion. "All weapons, tear it apart." They fired as one. Bolter shells screamed. Plague launchers vomited clouds of living filth. Warp-charged blades hurled arcs of diseased energy. For a heartbeat, the chamber vanished beneath smoke and corruption. Then the smoke parted. The figure stood untouched, not shielded, not deflecting, simply unacknowledging. "You cannot harm what no longer belongs to your god," it said, "nor what never truly did." Its voice carried echoes now other voices layered beneath it. Some ancient, some young, some screaming. The plague surgeon tried to retreat, mechadendrites scraping across the floor. "This is sorcery," he hissed. "Some loyalist trick. A psychic weapon." The figure turned its gaze upon him. And for the first time, it showed anger. The surgeon's armor ruptured inward. Not corroding, collapsing, as if gravity itself had decided he was in error. His body imploded soundlessly, leaving only a smear of blood and scrap. The remaining Death Guard hesitated. That hesitation cost them everything. The light flared again, not blinding now, but precise lances of brilliance carving through armor joints, severing limbs, pinning corrupted giants to the walls like insects in amber. Each strike was accompanied by a memory forced into their minds. A farmstead coughing itself to death. A hive city sealed and left to rot. A screaming mother clutching a child already dissolving. The figure did not kill them quickly. It made them remember. "You felt nothing while you did this," it said quietly. "You were told suffering was mercy. That stagnation was peace." It stepped closer to one pinned warrior whose helm had cracked, revealing a face swollen and distended beyond humanity. Yet beneath the rot, The eyes flickered. Confusion. Fear. "Look at me," the figure commanded. The warrior did and screamed. Because for a fraction of a second, reflected in the figure's light, he saw himself as he once was, clean, armored in the white and green of the old Legion. Standing beneath a sky that was not poisoned, the memory shattered him. His body collapsed into ash, leaving only his bolter clattering to the floor. Silence fell. The figure stood alone amid the wreckage, its light dimming, flickering like a failing star. The chamber groaned, reality struggling to knit itself back together now that the impossible force had passed through it. Then the light folded inward. The silhouette shrank, condensed, until it resolved once more into a single figure kneeling amid the broken floor. Malachor, or something wearing his name. He collapsed forward, hands scraping against the deck, retching, not bile, not filth, but thick black warp residue that evaporated as it touched the air. He gasped, each breath a struggle. The golden fire in his eyes dimmed, replaced by something raw and fragile. "I felt all of them," he whispered to no one. "Every soul we fed to him. Every lie we told ourselves." The cathedral hull was no longer empty. Shapes gathered at the edges of reality watching. Warped predators, curious demons, distant gods turning their gaze, if only for a moment, and beyond them, something else. A presence vast and terrible in its restraint. "You have been noticed," the voice returned, softer now, almost weary. "That was inevitable." Malachor looked up. "What are you?" A pause. "I am what remains when faith breaks," the voice said. "I am the debt left unpaid when gods grow fat." The floor before Malachor rippled, forming a mirror-like surface. In it, he saw visions not of the past, but of possibilities. Death Guard warbands tearing themselves apart as doubt spread like a counterplague. Imperial worlds igniting with renewed faith, only to be crushed beneath chaos reprisals. Malachor standing alone on a battlefield, torn apart by former brothers, screaming his name in hatred. And one final vision. A black throne of impossible scale, chained and cracked, something vast imprisoned upon it straining, waiting. "What do you want from me?" Malachor asked. The answer came with crushing clarity. "Nothing," the voice said. "You are already spent." Malachor's shoulders slumped. "Then why save me?" "Because your suffering was no longer useful to him," the presence replied. "And because even damnation has limits." The air began to tremble again, but this time, not from cleansing light. From rot, the warp recoiled as a familiar pressure pushed back. Nurgle had noticed the silence. A laugh rolled through the chamber, distant but immense, like thunder heard through diseased lungs. The walls bloated. Corruption surged back in waves, spores blooming violently as if enraged. Malachor screamed as sickness tried to reclaim him, veins blackening, flesh trembling on the edge of collapse. "No," he gasped. "Not again." The voice did not answer immediately. When it did, it was grim. "You have been reclaimed," it said. "But you are not safe." The laughter grew louder. The plague god was reaching back. Malachor felt himself tearing his body a battlefield between rot and something colder, harsher, infinitely less forgiving. And in that moment, as the first tendrils of Nurgle's will wrapped around his soul again, Malachor realized the truth that broke him completely. He was no longer damned, he was contested. And whatever came next would decide far more than his fate alone. The laughter did not echo. It soaked. It bled into the metal, into Malachor's bones, into the thin membrane of reality stretched tight around the chamber. The spores returned with fury, blooming in grotesque clouds, each one a tiny prayer screamed back into existence. The air grew heavy again, sweet and rancid, pressing down on his lungs with familiar cruelty. Malachor fell to his knees. His skin crawled as veins blackened, corruption racing to reclaim territory it had ruled for centuries. Every breath tasted of rot and comfort and surrender. The old instincts surged. Let go, stop fighting, let the garden take you back. For a moment, he almost did. Then he felt the chains. Not Nurgle's, not yet. These were colder, tighter, bound around his soul, not his flesh. They did not promise relief. They promised consequence. "Get up," the voice said, not gently. Malachor screamed as boils burst across his arms, only to wither and collapse into ash seconds later. His body flickered between State's rotted giant and scarred Astartes, unable to settle, like a corpse refusing to decide if it was dead. "You said I was reclaimed," Malachor gasped. "This feels like punishment." "Yes," the word struck harder than any blow. "Redemption is not mercy," the voice continued. "It is debt." The laughter surged again, closer now, filling the chamber with joy so vast it crushed reason. Nurgle was not angry, he was amused. A presence pushed through the warp like a swollen tide, dragging with it images and sensations, gardens stretching infinitely, laughter layered atop screams, decay blooming into obscene life. Malachor felt hands loving, paternal reach for him. "Come home." The temptation nearly broke him. Then the mirror returned. Not beneath his feet this time, but inside his mind. He saw himself again, but not as a hero or a monster. He saw moments, small ones. A guardsman coughing behind a rebreather he had punctured. A city governor begging for quarantine mercy. A child waving as plague ships descended, unaware. Each memory stabbed deeper than the last. "You cannot unsee this," the voice said. "And he cannot allow you to remember." The chamber ruptured. Warp light split the air as a rent tore open above Malachor, spilling filth and color and impossible geometry. From it descended a figure of impossible mass, amorphous, jovial, horrifying. A herald bloated with gifts, dragging chains of screaming souls behind it like festive banners. "Lost little son," it crooned, voice bubbling with affection. "Grandfather misses you." Malachor tried to stand, failed. His legs buckled as rot surged again, flesh softening, joints swelling. "I don't belong to you anymore," he said through clenched teeth. The herald laughed. "You never belonged to yourself." The chains around Malachor's soul pulled tight, yanking him upright with brutal force. Pain unlike anything he had known tore through him, not physical, but conceptual, as if parts of him were being defined against their will. "Listen carefully," the voice said. "This is the turning point. After this, there is no return to ignorance." The herald reached out. The moment its diseased fingers brushed Malachor's armor, the world froze. Time did not stop, it recoiled. The light returned, but different now, sharper, less forgiving. It carved a sigil into the air between Malachor and the herald, one that burned the eyes to look upon. Not imperial, not chaos, judgment. The herald shrieked not in pain but in outrage, as its hand blackened and sloughed away, severed by the mere presence of the symbol. "This one is marked," the voice declared. "Not claimed." The herald's laughter died. Something like fear replaced it. "You dare," it snarled. "He is ours by rot and oath. Oaths made under lies do not bind," the voice replied. The warp screamed. The herald lunged, swelling, splitting, multiplying its limbs into a grotesque avalanche of decay. The chamber collapsed inward as gravity twisted, reality folding under the strain of godly attention. Malachor was dragged forward, caught between forces too vast to comprehend, and then silence. Not absence, command. A new presence entered the void, so immense it made even Nurgle's laughter falter. Not warm, not cruel, empty. The light around Malachor dimmed further, resolving into something colder, more precise. He felt the chains shift, not loosening, but reconfiguring. "You are not an exception," the new presence said. "You are a vector." Malachor's vision blurred as images flooded him, other traitors, other fallen, across the galaxy. Some screaming in regret, some quietly questioning. Tiny fractures forming in the monolith of chaos faith. "You are proof," the presence continued. "That corruption is not absolute." The herald recoiled, dragging itself back toward the rift. "This is not allowed," it hissed. "The game is not meant to be played this way. Games end, came the reply. The rift snapped shut like a wound cauterized by void fire. The laughter was gone. So was the rot. Malachor collapsed again, this time onto cold, inert metal. The cathedral hull was dead now, no spores, no whispers, no warp pressure. Just a ruined ship drifting through silence. He lay there, staring at his hands. They were his, scarred, trembling, human. What happens now? He whispered. The answer was not immediate. When it came, it was quiet. Now you walk, the voice said. And everywhere you go, the lie weakens. Malachor laughed once, a broken, humorless sound. They'll hunt me. Yes. They'll tear me apart. Yes. He closed his eyes. For the first time in centuries, he felt exhaustion that had nothing to do with decay. Then why do this? A pause. Because hope terrifies gods, the voice said. And you are now a weapon they did not plan for. The presence began to withdraw, leaving behind a final truth that settled into Malachor's soul like a blade. He had not been saved to be forgiven. He had been spared to be seen. And somewhere, far beyond the dead ship, the long war shifted just slightly as something impossible took its first unchosen step forward. Silence stretched after the presence withdrew, thick and unfamiliar. Malachor lay amid the wreckage, the cold deck pressing against his back, listening to his own breathing as if it belonged to someone else. Each inhale burned. Each exhale carried the weight of centuries he could no longer hide behind rot or devotion. The void beyond the shattered hull stared back at him, black, indifferent, honest. For the first time since Isfin, nothing was telling him what to be. That terrified him more than any god. He pushed himself upright slowly, half expecting his body to betray him, to collapse back into filth. It did not. His muscles screamed with remembered pain, the kind earned honestly in battle, not gifted by corruption. His armor hung heavy and cracked, power systems dead, plague sigils scorched into meaningless scars. He rose anyway. As he did, something shifted deep within him, not a voice, not a command, but a pressure. Like eyes turning in distant places, he was no longer hidden. The moment he had walked away from decay, he had cast a shadow large enough to be noticed. The dead ship groaned as if agreeing. Far across the warp, reactions rippled outward. A sorcerer of the thousand suns paused mid-incantation, blood freezing in his veins as a vision shattered his concentration, a death guard warrior standing uncorrupted amid the ruin of his own legion, light burning where rot should have been. An Emperor's Children champion felt a sudden, inexplicable nausea, pleasure curdling into something sharp and unwanted as a name surfaced in his mind without invitation. On a demon world, a lesser prince screamed as chains tightened around its essence, laws subtly rewritten against its favor. And in the garden itself, a shadow passed across one patch of eternal rot, unnoticed by most but not by the thing at its center. Nurgle did not rage. He contemplated. Malachor staggered forward through the cathedral's remains, each step echoing louder than it should have. His helm lay discarded near the breach. He did not retrieve it. He wanted the void on his face, wanted the cold reminder that the galaxy did not care if he survived this choice. At the far end of the chamber, an emergency Vox console flickered weakly, running on reserves never meant to last centuries. Its rune glowed faintly, pulsing with incoming traffic. Distress signals, Imperial. He stopped. The old reflexes surged target acquisition, threat analysis, contempt. They felt wrong now, like armor worn inside out. He reached for the console with a hand that still trembled. The signal resolved into fractured audio and ghosted pit feeds. A mining outpost under siege. Traitor Astartes. Death Guard heraldry unmistakable. The same patterns of slow extermination he had once perfected. Malachor watched as civilians were herded into containment zones, coughing, collapsing, bodies swelling with gifts they never asked for. He recognized the tactics. He recognized the patience. He recognized the commander. Brother Captain Vorkson. Once his subordinate, once his friend. A memory surfaced, unbidden Vorkson, laughing as they marched beneath a sky-choked green. joking that decay was the galaxy's way of slowing down to appreciate itself. Malachor shut off the feed. The silence that followed was heavier than before. "So this is how it begins," he murmured. "Not prophecy, not destiny, choice." The pressure returned, stronger now, not from above, but from within. He felt the chains again, not pulling, not guiding, simply reminding him that walking away had consequences whether he acted or not. If he did nothing, Vorkson would finish the purge. Millions would die. The lie would remain unchallenged. If he intervened, he looked down at his ruined armor, at the scars where corruption had been burned away. He was one warrior, broken, hunted by gods and monsters alike. He laughed softly, bitter and tired. "Still not enough," he said. The void answered with a distant tremor. The ship's ancient engines, long dormant, flickered to life without his command. Emergency protocols awakened, systems responding to an authority Malachor did not recognize and did not fully possess. Coordinates began to scroll across the dead console. Not the mining outpost, something else, a convergence point. A place where the warp thinned to a knife's edge. Where belief bent reality and reality pushed back. A battlefield waiting to happen. Malachor felt it then, a subtle, horrifying realization settling into his bones. This was not about saving lives. This was about exposure. Wherever he went, the truth followed. And truth, in this galaxy, was more dangerous than any weapon. He turned toward the breach, toward the stars beyond. The ship shuddered as it adjusted course, ancient hull screaming protest as it obeyed. As the void swallowed the wreck behind him, Malachor felt it again, attention sharpening, focus narrowing. He was being tracked now, not by sensors or demons alone, but by intent. Vorkson would feel it soon, the itch of doubt, the wrongness in his blessings, the whisper that not all decay was sacred. Others would feel it too. Across the Imperium, plans began to shift. Traps were laid, bait prepared. And somewhere, far beyond Malachor's awareness, something vast leaned forward in its chains, interest rekindled. As the galaxy drew a breath it had been holding for 10,000 years. Malachor stood alone on the bridge of a ship that should not fly, moving toward a place he did not understand, carrying a truth that could shatter legions. For the first time since damnation, the war was not behind him, it was ahead. And whatever waited at the convergence point was already waiting for him to arrive. The ship slipped from the void like a thought forced into being. Stars twisted as the warp thinned, stretching into long pale scars of light before snapping back into place. The convergence point lay ahead, an empty region of space defined not by matter, but by absence. No planets, no debris, no signal traffic. A wound where belief had been cut too deeply, too often. Malachor felt it before he saw it. Pressure built behind his eyes. Old scars burned. His heart's beat out of sync, as if each remembered a different life. The ship's hull creaked, metal groaning in protest as reality resisted being used this way. He stood alone on the bridge, hands braced against the console, staring into a darkness that seemed to stare back. Then the first ships appeared. Death Guard. They emerged from the warp like bloated corpses pushed to the surface of a swamp. Cruisers and strike vessels, hulls distended with growths, icons of decay blazing proudly. Their presence alone poisoned the void, greenish haze spreading outward like a slow exhalation. At their center was a flagship Malachor recognized instantly. Vorkson's vessel. The pressure inside Malachor tightened, so this was the trap. Not an ambush of firepower, but of certainty, of inevitability. They had not come to destroy him immediately. They had come to witness. A Vox channel opened without encryption. "Brother," Vorkson's voice boomed across the bridge, rich with warmth and rot. "We felt you long before we saw you. You shine like a wound." Malachor did not answer. Vorkson continued, amused. "You left the garden without permission. That alone is remarkable." The flagship drifted closer, escorts forming a slow ceremonial ring. No weapons powered up. No threat displays. Confidence. "We have come to bring you home," Vorkson said, "or end your confusion. Either outcome pleases grandfather." Malachor stepped forward, voice steady despite the storm inside him. "You're wrong." A pause. "Oh?" Vorkson chuckled. "About which part?" "About all of it." The void trembled. "Not violently. Not yet." Malachor felt the chains shift again, not pulling him forward, but bracing him like hands on his shoulders, steadying him before a fall. "This place," he said, eyes fixed on Vorkson's ship, "was chosen because belief breaks here. Because lies echo louder than truth." Vorkson laughed openly now. "You think you've discovered something new? Doubt is part of decay. It always has been." Malachor closed his eyes and let himself remember everything. Not just the suffering, not just the regret, but the first oath. The first time he had believed in something without being promised comfort in return. He opened his eyes. The light did not explode outward. It unfolded. Soft at first, pale, like dawn touching a battlefield before the bodies are counted. It radiated from Malachor, not as fire, but as clarity. The ship around him faded, hull becoming transparent, until he stood naked against the stars, and the Death Guard saw him. They did not see a demon, or a loyalist champion, or a weapon. They saw themselves, as they were, as they had been, as they might have been. Across the fleet, plagued Marines staggered. Some dropped to one knee as visions tore through their minds. Others screamed as their blessings soured, rot recoiling from something it could not digest. Vorkson roared in fury. "Enough! This is trickery!" He ordered the attack. Weapons powered up, and then failed. Not jammed, not corrupted, refused. The warp itself pushed back like a sea rejecting a pollutant. Plague cannons coughed once, then fell silent. Demonic engines shrieked as their bindings weakened. Malachor felt it fully now, the truth of what he was. Not a savior, a mirror. "You told us suffering was kindness," Malachor said, his voice carrying through vacuum, through hull and soul alike. "You told us decay was freedom." He stepped forward, walking on nothing, carried by belief not his own. "But if that were true," he continued, "why did you have to lie to make us accept it?" Vorkson's flagship shuddered. From its hull, faces pressed outward, souls trapped in eternal joy, now screaming as the illusion cracked. The laughter that had once filled the garden tried to push through the void again, louder, desperate. Nurgle reached. This time, Malachor felt it clearly. Not affection, possession. The light around Malachor dimmed as pressure mounted. His body began to fracture, skin splitting with luminous cracks as incompatible truths tore at him. "You cannot carry this alone," the chained presence warned within him. "No one ever does." Malachor smiled faintly. "I know." He turned his gaze not to Vorkson, but to the fleet. To his brothers. "I don't ask you to follow me," he said. "I don't ask you to fight him. I don't even ask you to repent." The light pulsed, stronger now, fed not by defiance, but by recognition. "I only ask you to remember." The effect was immediate. One ship broke formation, then another. A single Death Guard warrior tore off his helm and screamed not in devotion, but in grief, as rot fell from his face like shed skin. Vorkson howled, a sound of pure betrayal. "You will doom them all." Malachor's strength faltered. Blood-real blood ran from his mouth. The light began to collapse inward, its work nearly done. "Yes," he whispered. "I will." The truth settled like a final blow. This was never about winning, only about ending the lie. The presence within him tightened the chains one last time, not restraining him, but holding him together. The void thundered as something fundamental shifted, not victory, not salvation, awareness. As the light finally dimmed, Malachor fell. Not into darkness, into silence. The fleets drifted, broken in spirit if not yet in arms. Vorkson's screams echoed unanswered as gods recalculated, as faith wavered, as the long war absorbed a new, terrible variable. Malachor lay suspended between life and death, barely conscious, feeling the galaxy breathe around him. He had been seen, and now nothing would ever be the same again. Silence returned slowly, like a tide receding. Not the brittle silence of a battlefield abandoned in haste, but something deeper, older, a silence that listened back. Malachor drifted. He did not feel the cold of space, nor the pull of gravity. He felt weightless in a way that had nothing to do with physics. His body existed somewhere between moments, held together by scars, memory, and a will that had already spent itself. The light was gone now, not extinguished, spent. Around him, the void settled into its natural state. Stars burned again with indifferent patience. The fractured warp smoothed itself, hiding the wound as it always did. The galaxy was very good at pretending nothing had changed, but it had. Malachor opened his eyes. The ship was there again, solid and real, lights flickering weakly as emergency systems reasserted control. The bridge was quiet, no voices, no commands, no gods whispering promises or threats. Just the hum of failing machinery and the slow rhythm of his own hearts. He breathed. Each breath hurt. Each breath mattered. He sat up with effort, armor creaking softly, and looked out through the cracked viewport. The Death Guard fleet was still there, but it was no longer a single thing. Ships drifted apart, formation broken. Some powered their engines without direction. Others remained motionless, as if waiting for an order that would never come. Vorksen's flagship was gone. Not destroyed, simply absent. Drawn back into the warp, or withdrawn by a hand that did not wish to linger where doubt had taken root. Malachor felt no triumph at that, only a tired, aching understanding. This was the cost. He rose unsteadily and made his way to the observation deck, leaning against the cold metal as if it were the only thing keeping him anchored. His reflection stared back at him in the glass guard, older than time should allow, eyes too honest now to hide behind corruption. A Death Guard no longer. Not something else either. Just a man who remembered. He thought of the sob that had opened the Vox channel so long ago. The sound that should not exist. The sound that had changed everything. Help me. That was all it had been. Not a prayer, not a rebellion. A moment of weakness. And in a galaxy ruled by absolutes, weakness had proven to be the most dangerous thing of all. The pressure within him was still there, faint now, like an old wound aching before a storm. The chains remained but looser. Not to bind him, not to guide him, to remind him. He understood now what the voice had meant. He had not been saved. He had been witnessed. Across the Imperium, across the Eye, across places where reality thinned and faith hardened into dogma, ripples spread quietly. A Death Guard warband hesitated before deploying a new plague. A cultist paused mid-prayer, unsettled by a doubt he could not name. A demon recoiled from a soul it should have devoured easily and did not understand why. Small things. Insignificant things. Until they weren't. Malachor rested his forehead against the glass and closed his eyes. He felt exhaustion sink into his bones, the kind that came not from battle, but from finally setting something down after carrying it for centuries. "What happens to me?" he asked the silence. No answer came. And for the first time, that was enough. He did not need destiny, or forgiveness, or absolution written in fire. He would walk. That was all. Wherever he went, some would hunt him. Others would curse his name. A few, very few might remember him when doubt crept in, when the lie began to feel thin. That was the price. And the purpose. The ship's engines rumbled softly, responding to a course set long ago by no god at all. Not toward glory. Not toward martyrdom. Toward the unknown. Malachor took one last look at the drifting fleet behind him, then turned away. The stars ahead burned cold and distant, uncaring of what had just passed between them. The galaxy would go on. Wars would continue. Empires would rise and rot. Gods would feast and starve in endless cycles. But somewhere in the dark, a truth now existed that could not be unlearned. That corruption was not inevitable. That damnation was not always permanent. That even a monster, given one moment of clarity, could choose to stop being one. As the ship slipped into the void, Malachor allowed himself a final thought, quiet, unspoken, but heavy with meaning. If a Death Guard Marine could ask for help, what did that say about everyone else who never dared to? The stars faded, the silence remained, and the question lingered. If this story made you think, if it made you feel something, don't let it end here. Like the video, share it with someone who loves Warhammer lore, and tell me in the comments, do you believe redemption has a place in the grim darkness of the far future, or was Malachor's choice the most dangerous heresy of all?